Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Postcast.
Why did you emphasize Christian? Are we acting in a way that would not show
Some
that?
of us may have just called the others of us. Although we did deserve it. So I guess
Are you saying she was being pushed?
Yeah, a little. We were pushing some buttons, I think. We never record in between, mostly because there would be a lot of chewing sounds because we're all frantically trying to eat something to keep the blood sugar from tanking between. But oh my goodness, you guys missed so much shenanigans. I'm so sorry for you.
You missed nothing this last one. Nothing.
Awesome. So I did a randomizer. Well, first of all, welcome to the Postcast. If you've watched the Postcast, you know what's going to happen. We're each going to critique a piece that was submitted by the others in advance so that we could have some time with it and really give thorough feedback, not just the stuff that we do during the podcast, which is always only positive. This is where we can actually be helpful and give some real meat to the submitter. So I did a randomizer. It put Jen first. It put Jen, Jamie, Rhonda, Tina. So as usual, Jen will not speak while we discuss her work, and then she'll come back to rebut or address any concerns or just let us know how she feels about us nicelier than she did before we pushed on the air. Anyway, so Jen, what were you hoping to get from us?
All right, so this piece is a revamped piece from the last postcast that we had, and where I shared, and it needed a lot of work, and so this is the second edition, and I'm just curious to see if I hit the mark this time, if I accomplished what needed to be accomplished, and so on. So.
Okay, so she's going to be quiet while we discuss the piece, and so let us commence. So who has something to say? Rhonda?
Rhonda does.
I always have something to say. Okay. I am quite passionate about my opinions of the things that she's written, her characters and all that. This one, I think it's a necessary part of the story because there's characterization of both of the characters in it, but it's not one that I'm really like, oh, I can't believe this happened, or, oh, I'm so glad this happened. It's not one of those kind of things, but I think it's a necessary part because you can't be like up and down every single scene that you read. You know what I mean? So I think we got to see the character of Phoebe and her father. Although I will point out, why does she want to meet that trooper so bad? I don't think she needs to. It's none of her business. She'll meet him eventually. Don't worry about it. And then also, I did actually laugh out loud when I read I laughed out loud when I read besides without a few shiny new cast iron pots. Well, I've never seen a shiny cast iron pot before, but I'm sure it meant shiny brand new. But I did laugh when I read that.
Although, okay, so if you get an unseasoned cast iron pot, it is, it's not shiny. I guess it's kind of dull, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you did not really buy the motivation that she just wants to thank the trooper for getting the bags. Okay, you don't buy it. Because that's the reason that's given in the piece, and I just wondered if it made any difference. No, it's not enough to want her to be so desperate to meet that guy.
Yeah, because she really, really wants to meet him really bad. At least she has enough manners to want to be introduced and not, run over there to him or something.
Right. Gotcha. So. What do you say, Bambino?
Yeah, I think you introduced me one time was sufficient. And the only other issue that I had, I liked it. I felt like it was cleaned up quite a bit from last time. I didn't have them side by side to look at. So, but I feel like this one moved faster. The only part that stopped me was the whole thing about the store that stood on the corner of Commonwealth. And I actually wrote, and what, before I read the street this church was located on, and what appeared to be the only other street in town. So it actually stopped me, I'm the corner of what? So gotcha. Maybe that's just me not
I might agree with you. If you're going to mention a corner, you have to mention both street names, I would think, and closer together. I mean, I can see that criticism. Yeah.
And I'm going to disagree with both of you because I like that phrasing of that whole section right there.
And you're the target audience, so maybe you're the one that is right here in this case. You know what I mean?
It all worked out fine because then I just kept reading, but I did stop me to ask the question, the corner of what? So it just, it's probably just my issue, but anyway, and like Jennifer, like Rhonda said, this isn't like a ooh kind of scene, but it's like kind of the rebar necessary stuff that we need to know to get
rebar. Good phrasing.
To get to the ooh scene.
Okay, and so like I would. Oh, I'm getting a bad echo. Okay, that's gone. I would agree with both of you, except that. Okay, first of all, this is way better than the first one. Like so much of the, and then she looked at this, and then she looked at that. Gone. Love it. Like this is better, I think. And I don't know if the author feels like she's done and moving on, or if she is still wondering. But to me, I don't understand what is the point of this chapter. And so I can't say whether or not it's mission accomplished. Like, is the point that Reverend Albright gave her a bunch of money to buy, like what is the mission of this chapter? Is it to introduce us to what the town looks like? Is it to show that her cabin is very sparsely appointed? Because it feels like it's trying to accomplish many objectives. And so it's kind of broad brushing over so many things that it doesn't read as smoothly and as nicely as I think the author would want it to. It feels out of her voice, in my opinion. It's kind of like you guys said, she knows she has to put in some facts, and here are the facts. But like, I'm trying to figure in my mind how to fix it, but I'm not sure if what I would take out would then not do what she wants to do with the story. Does that make sense?
I seem to remember her saying last time that she was trying to give us a sense of what the little village was like.
Then I would chop out the list of everything she needed, mostly a mirror. She made a list and headed out, and then spend more time talking about the town. Do you see what I'm saying? So like, whatever is the point of this should be the bulk of what she talks about, and just brush over those other little things. So if she makes a list of the things she needs, she made a list of the things she needed and headed out. Big description of the town. I mean, I get that the mirror is important. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get that she has to say she doesn't have a mirror, and maybe that's what starts her on her shopping list. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? It feels too gloss over this and gloss over that. I don't know.
I do understand what you're trying to say, but I think that this right here that we have is more a characterization of her, like more of her thinking, or maybe not even thinking, just her basic personality, maybe. I'm not sure, because she was told she had this place to live in with all of her needs. And then she walks in here and everything's so sparse. Well, her needs are food, shelter, and water, right? And those are all there. So that was a little bit. But then also when it goes down, she shows the list to her father that he says that, it's not a very long list anyway. So she doesn't have a lot of wants. So she's not selfish personality wise. You know what I mean? Luxury needing
she's
person.
Not looking for wants. She's looking for needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also mentioning a little bit of the father's characteristic, which is they were saving this money and here we want to give it to you because what else would we want to use it for besides our child? So for me as a reader, I learned a lot about the character and a little bit about the town, and the characters are the more important thing, I think.
Awesome. Yeah. And my bottom line point was just, it's harder for me to say which way I would tweak it to improve it from my perspective without knowing what's important to her.
Oh yeah.
Do in the chapter. Like, was that what she wanted? She just wanted to make sure that you had a better understanding of the relationship with the Albrights together. Like, do you know what I mean? Because I like to say mission accomplished. You could tweak this or that to make me happier as a reader, but you accomplished what you wanted to in this chapter. I just kind of can't figure out what that is in this. Because I'm not like over the moon about it. But again, I mean, there's going to be parts in a book where you just have to learn some information. So I could totally just go with, okay, it's just rebar and stuff. And people who are reading the book are going to read this and just process and move on. It's not poorly written. It's not going to stop anybody and say, this is horrible. But for me to be able to offer suggestions to improve it, I just need to know what the focus is. And that's all I have to say. But of course, the writing is good. I mean, to end on a piece of bread, that's almost not even worth saying because it's always true. I mean, there's no issue here with her writing. So.
Right.
Anybody want to add anything before we let her out?
Let her out.
Let her out. Come on out, Jen. What do you have to say?
All right. The first thing I want to address is this shiny cast iron pot. It's because I originally wrote it as a copper pot. And I switched it because I'm like, she doesn't live in copper country. For those of you that don't know about the UP, there's copper country. And then there's also like where the iron milling or the iron mining would have been. And originally, a lot of my research was in copper country because there's so much Finlandia University has out there. And so I originally wrote it as a copper pot. But then when I went through and took this and really tore this chapter apart, I got to the shiny copper pot. And I'm like, she would have had an iron pot. Like, wouldn't it make more sense? But I missed the shiny part. So totally glad you caught that because that is kind of dumb. Like, who's gonna look at the reflection? So.
Well, a really well seasoned cast iron skillet.
Yeah,
it would.
Shiny.
Yeah,
it would have to be right. So I will fix that. So that's okay. So the goal of this chapter. All right, so I do mention the town, but if you recall, she gets most of like the town. We talk about the town mostly on her walk from the train to the parsonage. We get like kind of like a glimpse of the town. And the only reason I bring the town up again is because there is more that she's going to see. And I have to keep exposing the town like in a natural way without it being like, then there was this and that. But mostly because she needs to know where the constabulary is. And we have to start noticing the Michigan State Troopers. So that's really what I bought. So that's not a main focus of this, but of course, as she's walking, she's going to see these things. The focus really is like how like sparse things are. And it really this is just one of those chapters that you find in historical romance that just gives you setting and starts to show you how your character is going to interact with the setting. So it's not supposed to have a huge goal, but I do need it. We do need, if we never see what it looks like where she lives. And, but I do understand it feeling glossed over, but I cut 2,000 words out of this. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I feel like part of the glossing over is because I took so much out because I was the opposite extreme. The opposite extreme was like telling us too much about what we're looking at. So, I guess I'll walk away from this chapter for a little bit and then maybe come back to it later and see.
You know what? I mean, Rhonda and Tina feel like it's probably good as is. I'm the one person saying that I'm not really kind of satisfied with it. And really, I guess I'm trying to figure out why I feel that way so that I can give you helpful feedback instead of just saying, do it over or do it different and not being helpful. Because you're right. My criticism last time was that you were being too intricate with describing, well, I only have one stove. What will I do in the winter? And so like, I get it. Like you totally had to cut because you were too much the last time. And now I'm telling you, well, I want more. But my problem is just, it doesn't feel like focused enough to me. Like, gosh, I don't know. Okay, so like a possible fix for me would be like an overarching theme of Phoebe's worst day ever. And then this happened to her, and then that made it even worse. And so some kind of a story that you're telling that makes it make sense that you're giving me all of this information. So do you know what I mean? Because it feels very stilted, even when she gets to dialogue with Reverend Albright. Well, you blah, blah, blah. Well, I blah, blah, blah. Well, there's like not really any emotion here. There's not really any like humanism here. It's all really facty, I guess. But again, I am 1 out of 3 of your readers who even said that there was like a problem. You very well could publish, and isn't a person out there that would be like, well, blah, blah, blah about this. I just am telling you that how it kind of felt to me. And I was the person that told you it was too much before. So I don't mean to be like telling you, well, no, it's not enough. I hope that that's helpful in some way.
No, it is helpful. Like, I like the idea of having an overall theme like Phoebe's worst day. I didn't really think about like that because I was just so worried about getting the word count down and not being so wordy. But honestly, like to write it more about like I really, why am I not inside her head and her being so frustrated at the way she was treated by those women? Like that should be affecting everything she does right now,
and then
right?
she has to maybe rein in her, well, that's not his fault. I'm just worked up because of those women, right? So she's like, and now I got to go to the store, right? And so then you would have more of a connection in this piece.
Right.
And it would help it go down a little easier. It's medicine that you have to take, like you said, you know.
I absolutely agree. So like I feel like this is a work in progress, and I think it's just good for the other writers to watch this on the Postcast, because I had this like chapter that was like huge, and I knew there was something wrong. I couldn't figure it out, and then we realized, yeah, it's just too long, too much stuff. So then I shortened it down, and now that we've got it shortened down, we realize, okay, so got that problem out of the way. There's still a problem here. Like I agree with what Tina and Ron are saying. Like I agree, I could put this in there, and it would totally fit genre. You get chapters like this, but I want more. I want to be better, and so I want people to love her and understand her completely. And so I want you to be inside her head. How she would be frustrated. Like Phoebe would for sure be like frustrated at these women, but having to rein it in because now she's a pastor. You know, so she's this kind of like the strong-willed one of them. So
right. And so like if you tailor the emotion to like suppress, well, I'm supposed to be a pastor now, that will help you with the thing about she wished she would have packed items to make the place feel more like home. Well, you could be like, you know, they don't even know that I left all of my curtains and napkins at home. If I was such a blah blah blah, I would, you know what I mean?
Doilies.
So connect it to like emotions that she's, what did you say? Doilies?
Mm.
Yeah,
Very
they don't even know about all of the doilies that mother tried to make me bring. And here they're saying that I'm stuck up. And well, but I do need a mirror. I don't care what they say. I need a mirror because I need to know if I look presentable. So I am going to the store. Huh. And that, you know what I mean? And so she then marches to the store with purpose and like, I am buying a mirror. And then she's like, oh, but I also, maybe on the way to the store, oh, but I also need, oh no, but I also need. And then maybe when she gets to Reverend Albright, it's just, Daddy, I need all of this stuff and I can only afford blah, blah, blah. And all I need a mirror. And he's like,
but that's not her personality.
But maybe not. But I'm just saying like
I know
that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Like it's got to be a good balance because I really need to show her like frustration, but she also is very controlled. Like she's also like very much like going to try to fit into this role. And I don't want, she would not like lose it in front of her dad. Like
maybe if you could show her thought process as she is trying to maintain her control.
And then by the time she gets to the store, she has it like kind of reined in and like and put it in God's hands. Like, you know what? This is God has called me here. It is gonna be fine.
And then God shows up with Reverend Albright in his big fat wallet. And so she's rewarded for being faithful.
That's it, because that's really what I want to show with this, but I wasn't showing that. And then she could have a little bit, and also to fix the whole, why is she so obsessed with meeting this this state trooper? I could like have her in her head say, start to get frustrated that her dad like isn't listening to her, and then she just be like, nope, I've already put this all in God's hands, everything in God's time, and then So
then what, she not talk about the state trooper or
No, she will. But when her dad says, oh, you'll meet him later, like not bring it up again. Because that was your problem, right, guys? Was that, asking
like, why is she so eager? Yeah.
Yeah, making her not so eager outside. Like inside her head, she'd be like frustrated about it. But then whatever, God will take care of it.
She just needs to forget about him anyway.
You know who it is, right, Rhonda? Like,
no, I guess I don't.
Oh, good, because I don't want it to be obvious.
I love you, Rhonda. Right. You're just amazing. I just love you. So sweet.
She's probably let Red laugh of it though. Like, wait till next podcast. It might take two podcasts. We'll see. So
awesome, great. Is your back fed, Jen, or did anybody have any? So. Did anybody need something addressed by her that they brought up that they didn't? No, are we good? All right, I have to stop talking now. It's a sad time in my life.
All right. You're next, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It says sad, but it's backwards. Okay, so this is just the end of a piece that I gave you guys a long time ago. It's been spread out over 3 podcasts. I've been giving you like 1,000 words at a time. And I just would like feedback on it. Again, I'm sorry to be so vague, but it's basically, I have things that I wonder are people going to hate? And so I just want to hear I want to hear organic feedback. Okay. And yeah, so I will mute myself also because I have to yell at a child.
We've all been there.
Talk about real life mirroring fiction, right? Like,
Right?
Yes.
this is all
All right.
about like somebody with a bunch of kids and
3 kids. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So, not Iobota.
Wait a minute. 3 kids. You have 3 kids. By the end of this piece, she thinks that
there's
she's.
enough.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this moment for the whole morning.
I'm in isolation booth.
Okay. The one thing I need to know, is this going to be like a baby reveal party? Is that what we're doing right now?
Jamie's going to tell us
Jamie
what she's expecting.
Yes. Oh, that'd be so great. That's why she moved to Florida.
Can I just,
All right,
can I just
let's
tell
read
you
it in.
what I wrote at the end?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that.
How horrible. What a
Terrific nightmare.
Oh.
Like, it was awesome.
Okay.
I'll go first. I love this character. I just really can relate to this character. I remember when I was at a women's retreat, and it was the first time that I was away from Chloe, who was a baby, but I think I had just finished nursing with her. Like, I kind of wrapped that up. I must have. And I was at this women's retreat, and I woke up not feeling well, and I knew instantly. Like, I knew. And also my body's like, you need protein, and I wake up early, and there was no one else awake. There was the kitchen was not, there was no food for us to eat yet at this retreat. And I got in my car because we were out in the middle of nowhere, and I drove to the nearest town in the McDonald's drive-through and called my husband bawling, I know I'm pregnant. And I was pregnant with Phoebe. So I could totally relate with this lady. I could just, all of it, like that. Cause of course, you guys know, I love my kids and I love Phoebe and she's a joy. But at that moment, I was not feeling any joy. It was just total like overwhelm at that point. So I love that. That's my first piece of bread. Do we want to go through and do all of our bread first, or?
Sure.
All right.
Go ahead, Tina.
I love this creature in the lake. How she kept correcting him, like, this is a lake. Oh, excuse me. I've been lurking in this lake for millennia. I love that. That was just so, I don't know. I love her sarcasm and her like snarkiness, and so like she's having this nightmare of this strange creature coming out of the lake, and she's like correcting his geography. Like, I don't know. I just really love it.
What about you, Rhonda?
Everything that both of you just said. This character I just love. I mean, she could be writing I don't know, about somebody that could be my best friend. I just love this person. I love the way that she just cared. I just can't stop saying it. I love the characterization of this person. I also love the creature in the lake, not the ocean or sea or whatever it was. But so that was a nightmare because I missed the part where she fell asleep. Because
we don't see the point. We find out afterwards. Oh, she was asleep.
Oh, okay. I don't know how I skipped over that, but I was thinking maybe this was another installment, like she's going to do 4 books in her series right now.
Oh,
but I love it. I love the relationship with her husband. I love every single one of her thoughts about her children and the possibility of having another one. When the husband noticed that her smells were off, I had that symptom, and for him to notice that, he's amazing.
Yeah, I love the husband. That's my other piece of bread that I was going to end with. Is I feel like that relationship, like she really redeemed him at the end of the story. In the beginning, I was kind of like, but yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my bread. I just love everything about this.
All right, so let me share my meat real quick. My meat is I didn't like the monster. Like that, and I don't know if it's because, well, here's the thing, and as I'm listening to you guys, I'm wondering if it's because I relate too much with the character, because like as I'm reading it, I'm really feeling like I'm starting to be in the middle of like a women's fiction, a women's literature type of a novel, and then all of a sudden that happens, and I was just like, it's sci-fi. Like I get that it's a dream, but for me, it was so out of the blue that it took me out of the story. And now all of a sudden, all I could think of is, well, what is this story then? Like I thought I was reading one thing, and now all of a sudden she's throwing something else at me, and it's a totally different genre than I thought. So for me, it was distracting. But again, I'm one reader, so maybe it's just because like I saw myself, and I would never have like that kind of a dream. So maybe it's because I related too much with the character. Maybe that's
See, for me, I said, "Oh, cool! It's one of her sci-fis." So then I got really excited. But then when it turned out to be just a dream, I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I was really happy with the end that it turned out that she's pregnant again. So that was a roller coaster for me, which I like. I like when a piece of fiction puts me on the roller coaster.
Yep. So. I too was excited for this to be another sci-fi, but now that you're telling me it was a dream, I'm okay with that too. But whichever way it was going to go, I like the monster. I like kind of surprise, weird things like that. And then also for her to add it when she was having dinner to remember it. And anyway, I think the monster just added to the story.
I kind of wish it wasn't a dream. That there really was like a monster.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad it's a dream because it, like Jen said, it is women's fiction-y to me, and so that wouldn't fit in there. And I would rather have the women's fiction than the sci-fi, even though I love her sci-fi. And then also the way that the way the husband slaps his hand together and then flings him outward like for the magic. I love that. I could just totally see it playing out as she was describing it. Anyway, somebody else.
I like it. I love this piece. I was very glad that when she brought it to us so that we could finish up. I was wondering what happened with these characters, so I love this.
So this is really the end of this?
I believe so.
Why did they have to end?
All right. Anything else before we let her out? All right. Jamie, what do you think?
Awesome. Thank you so much for your great feedback. So did the bits about the moon, did the moon bits work? That she hates the moon and she's whatever they're fighting. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I asked about that part.
Great. That was, and I'm glad because you guys didn't bring it up. So obviously it wasn't a thing. No. I'm glad you didn't bring it up because it meant that it wasn't weird and that you weren't like, what is this whole thing she's doing about the moon, whatever. Because if I recall correctly, this was a call for submissions about the moon or something that I just went off on a tangent. Okay. So the monster, I knew Jen would not like the monster. I knew. But the question I have is if you're sitting in the waiting room of the doctor or whatever, I need you to be honest, all three of you, and you're kind of thumbing through Women's Day and you come across this little story and you're reading, do you say a monster and throw the thing down? Or is it enough to keep kind of going? Because I have her address almost immediately. Now, I know you're a figment of my imagination because I don't do sci-fi, right? So I need to know if what I've done is enough that you'll keep reading to try to get through the spaghetti monster, or if you're just like, forget it. This is like an alien story and I'm not reading anymore.
Was that for Jen?
For all three of you.
All right. So for me, I think if it weren't you who had written it, I probably would have thrown it down. Been like, this isn't what because I felt like there were no hints at sci-fi up to that point. Then all of a sudden it felt like it was a total flip of the story. So for me, maybe if the monster weren't so ridiculous, I know it's supposed to be a dream, but weren't so over the top ridiculous, maybe I wouldn't have been so like, what? But that's just me. That's just one person. What about you, other ladies? What do you think?
Well, I'm like the complete opposite of that. Because I would rather have a story about that monster than the whole rest of it. Like for the kind of stuff that I read, I'm not saying that the whole story, I love the story. But for the kind of stuff that attracts me, that I would be more attracted if I had over here a story about this woman dealing with being pregnant again, and over here monster comes out of the lake. I would immediately grab Monster Comes Out of the Wood.
Fun.
But as far as Women's Day, like if that's what our context is, I guess that's
I would not even pick up the Women's Day. So.
Yeah, right. Okay, I am so with Tina on this. Everything she just said. But okay, so my doctor, typically it's an hour and a half wait in the waiting room before he even gets to you. And so obviously I want to see him as soon as possible. But if I had started reading this and he, I was led in there for him to see me or whatever, I would make him wait so that I could finish the story. Because seriously, I loved it. I really, really loved it.
So when the spaghetti monster shows up, you don't immediately, because I mean, I get it to Jennifer. You feel like as a reader, like, wait a minute, what? Something is coming up out of the lake. What is this? You know what I mean? Like, so she is saying, well, this is now stupid. Would you be like, well, I'm invested and now I want to keep reading and find out what's going on here?
No, not invested. I was like, well, when I read it earlier last night, I was like, what? Wait. His arms are like fettuccine. What's going on here? And yeah, I kept reading because I was interested in it.
Okay. So yeah, everything shook out more or less the way that I expected it would, except for hearing that Tina would rather read about the monster in the lake. That was not I really did expect it to be Jen hates the spaghetti monster and that Tina, like I almost knew what you all would say, but the big question again was like, is it so jarring and jolting? And so then like, do I need to show that she falls asleep or something? Like, is there a way that would help it or save it for people like Jennifer? Or is it just, no, maybe. People are not gonna, because the deal is, this is not real. She obviously fell asleep and had a nightmare. And why is that objectionable that she would dream about this thing happening?
Maybe if you made some kind of reference earlier in the story, because when I was pregnant, I always had super bizarre dreams.
Yeah, me too.
I can't even tell you. So when I was in a fishbowl and I was drowning in a fishbowl, and all my friends were standing around watching me, and so they were like all distorted by the water, and they're all laughing, and their faces were going like this. So,
were you a preacher's wife at the time?
No.
Let's analyze this dream.
Well, that's something really interesting to think about. So she also, when she talks about the fact that the diaper made her disgusted and she hasn't been sleeping, when she did sleep, she's having these wackadoodle dreams. And then immediately when the water starts bubbling, aha, I'm asleep. Let's see where this dream takes me. I'm going on a trip. I dropped some dream acid and we're going to go and see, spaghetti. Well, this is really creative of me because I normally don't do sci-fi. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then maybe that would help to redeem it for the Jennifer reader, right?
I think so. I think that would really help. I will say, though, I do really appreciate and like that the soup at the end had asparagus and fettuccine, and that part, I love that. So that was well done.
Yeah, because what I felt was she probably noticed as she was going through the kitchen, right? Like she probably would have seen kind of what was, and just kind of it went in her head. So awesome. So I thank you guys for that very much. I'm glad that overall it was enjoyable. So then I just have to decide whether or not I'm going to try to address that or just roll the dice that people are going to go with me on this wackadoodle journey. So I thought it might be, but if all three of you were like, no, the monster is ridiculous, then I would have been like, oh gosh, I'm really in trouble. So I really appreciate it, you guys. Really appreciate it.
If all three of us agreed on something, then you'd really be in trouble. Armageddon is right around the corner then.
I think it started on Monday, but I digress.
And it just goes to show you, I mean, so Jennifer had an opinion that wasn't like everybody else's, and everybody needs to be brave enough to say what they really think in a situation. So awesome. Thanks, guys, very much. Who's next? I forgot.
Rhonda.
Rhonda. That was Tina. Okay.
No, Tina going last.
I'm last.
So I actually can't remember the last scene that I gave you from this book that Mom and I are writing together. But this is the most recent one that we wrote. And as I reread it, maybe the beginning needs a little bit of work. But basically, I just want to know if you guys understand what's going on without knowing what's happened in the last 4 or 5 scenes. And anyway, just in general.
Okay, so into the isolation booth you go, because since I've read this, Jennifer, do you want to be the one to say it?
Wait, say.
Okay, can I just say it then?
Yeah, go ahead.
I am so sad that this is not a story about a talking dog.
Let me read to you the part that So Jamie and I were like, because I had a question for Jamie that I didn't want you girls to hear, and I didn't want to text it because I didn't want to ruin my what's up today in the podcast. So we were online and she was busy doing something. I'm like, I haven't read yet. I'll just read, out loud. So I read this out loud. I got to one part. I'm like, wait, what? So I got to the part where it says, what do you think happened? Nettie said as she rubbed the top of Tino's head. Good question. He looked up and scanned the room briefly. It doesn't look like
I'm like, wait, the dog? The dog said it?
We both were like, the dog talk? What? Wait a minute. So, okay.
So anyway, that was just great fun for a few minutes that we were like, oh, Tino. And then I picture him, he's like a little chihuahua or something. And he's adorable and talks. And he's like a magical, cozy animal, whatever.
All of a sudden, I see him with a fedora on, like, because he's like the detective. He's like...
he's Wishbone.
He's Wishbone.
Okay, so anyway, all that fun aside.
Okay, exactly. All right, so I'll start since I'm the one that so my bread is I'm super glad that we're back seeing pieces from this this piece because I really want to know what happened to this person. We know she died, but we don't know. Victoria, we saw her writing a letter or no, leaving a phone message, and then all of a sudden there was a sound or whatever, and then boom. So I love that we're back into this. I love that the little dog, like the footprints and stuff, like just to let you know that that she's been laying there for a little while and whatnot.
Yeah, and that the dog cared, and that the dog was like, "Oh no, hey master," you know what I mean? Aw, right. It's very sad.
I love this piece too, and the only comment I wrote in my red pen on here, I had no idea what travertine is.
Oh, really?
So, I don't know if you want to call it something else or just stick a few 3-word description in there.
I don't know. I mean, I think travertine is pretty well. I mean, it's. I mean, if you put porcelain on there, I think everyone would know. You wouldn't have to say it. So, I don't know that for me it wouldn't be enough to trip me up. But
sorry, yeah, I've never ever heard the word before, so I had to look it up. But other than that, and I underlined where he wrote he was tucking something into his breast pocket. I underlined that in my green pen, and I wrote, "Ooh, I want to know."
Yeah.
He was tucking, and is it a secret Braille message that this lady left, so only Nettie could read it? That's where my mind's going. So I can't wait to find out what happens.
And I'm glad that Rhonda mentioned before she went into isolation that there's been a few chapters from what we read, the opening, like the prologue, and to this, because for me, I was like, that's like, I feel like this would make sense. It would come right next almost. But what did surprise me is Nettie is lacking completely in emotion. Like, this is her friend and the person's body is there. So is Nettie a cop? And I missed that. Like, is she just so desensitized to death that it wouldn't affect her at all? And I feel like I just need some more emotion from her, like touching the Braille stuff. I think that there should be a little bit more. I liked the flashback. I like that gave us information that I know we're going to need for later. So I think that's really cool. But so I just was kind of surprised at that, the lack of emotion.
Yeah. I could get on board with that, or I could be like, well, I haven't seen you for 50 years. So you were my best friend when we were 12 or something, but then you called on me. So I came out here to your house and now here you are dead. So the emotional connection is from you don't really know her. So it depends on what the truth of that is. Right. We don't know. Right? Also, here's my question. Do you remember the little old man that they sped away from in that other book? Is that Dallas? Who is Dallas?
Yeah, I don't know.
So that's what I want to know. And then did they have a falling out or something? And so now she doesn't want to see Dallas anymore. So my brain is trying to figure out who Dallas is. Is he a husband? Is he a brother? Maybe Dallas was the son? I think the problem is we don't have the other chapters to go back to. But then if Dallas is a relative of hers, he should be sad, like Jen is saying. So right. To Jen's point, the emotion, and then
I think Dallas is just a cop. But I'm not for sure. I don't know.
So she went to Dallas but why would only her why would she go there with a cop
Right, because don't the cops show up? Like mention the lights and stuff. Like,
so these are questions we may have answered if we had more of the piece, which is
Maybe.
not, yeah. And then just as like a nit for like the physical stuff, I don't know what this RTF format is, but there's 0 paragraphs, and this was really hard for
know.
me to read. So that's just a notation for like the formatting for the purposes of being able to edit it. But I love the fun detail of the daughter dance, like Shirley Temple dancing, and the whole thing about the girl being almost blind, but you can tell that she's like so full of life and things like that. And she's very daring to prove. I mean, just really good. I thought that this delivered a lot of information in a way that didn't feel info dumpy.
Agree.
So for there, that's a win. I just have some questions that I wonder could be answered with more chapters. And then also I could be persuaded, to Jen's point of view, that Nettie wouldn't be so like removed emotionally. So I could be on board with that. So that would be my meat.
Let me add one more thing about the emotional thing too. Without getting to, I recently lost a family member on my husband's side, and went to the house where we found him. Natural causes, but still, there still is an emotional. I was not close to this person. Like, not that I didn't love
But
them,
death
but
has like an energy, doesn't it? You're saying.
yes. And this lacks that entirely. So even though we weren't bawling, it was a shock value to it, and there is an energy, right, that I feel is not here. So
This is too clinical for someone who is not hard-boiled gumshoe guy.
right now, if you tell me, if we learn that that Nettie is a cop or an investigator, and this just happens all the time, and she's like clinically processing this, like, then maybe I would have a different opinion. But right now, I feel like there's just like a lack of, oh my gosh, we're in the room with a dead body, and what happened? Like, just the confusion, all that stuff, and I don't know.
That's cool.
Should we be touching the body? Like, what are you doing? Like, all that, like, that kind of stuff. So
Tito says, it's fine. Just walk right up and lick her on the ear. Anyway, so Tina, what do you feel about that? What's your opinion on how it feels emotionally?
Well, yeah, I did. I kind of got a vibe of reading a detective story, like crime scene-ish. It felt crime scene-ish to me. So I guess what Jennifer's saying, like, could hold water for me too. Yeah.
all right. Anything else before we let her out?
Nope. I think it's, I'm done.
All right, Tino, what you got to say?
Or Rhonda?
Tino, I said.
Oh, Tino.
Okay. Thank you for the excellent feedback. Once again, ladies, you guys are awesome. Okay. The thing about the dog talking, that is hilarious, because you're so right about that. We knew the beginning needed a little bit of work, but that is a huge issue right there. Okay.
That's your shiny copper pot of this
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I'll just give you a little bit of background just to answer some of the questions. Nettie and Dallas, you don't know all their story yet, but it's coming out a little bit scene by scene. And they were high school sweethearts. And Dallas is Victoria's cousin. And that's kind of how they were like in a friend group together in high school and all that. And you're right, Nettie hasn't seen her in 50 years. And I'm so glad you talked so much about the emotion, because Mom and I talked about the emotion a lot. And she thought that there should be some of Nettie's character coming through, like her snarky, smart aleck, whatever. But I didn't think that was appropriate. And so we thought, the scene before this, Nettie talks about she's going to visit Victoria because they just saw each other again at a class reunion, and they were going to catch up at lunch today. And Victoria wasn't returning her calls, so Dallas said, well, I'll just drive you out there. And so Dallas, she's not answering the door. They see Tito yelling at the front door, and he's a little bit matted looking. So they go around the house
yelling. So he does talk.
Well, he's barking. He's yipping.
Kind of Timmy's in the well type stuff, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so they go around the back of the house, and they can see her on the floor, and they think, oh, she's had a heart attack or she's fallen and can't get up or whatever. And so when they get in there, Nettie's standing over the body, realizing she's dead. And we thought, would she be in shock? Would she have no emotion? But for you guys to say that she needs the emotion, that is fantastic. We appreciate that very much.
On the other hand, when I encounter something like that, I go into complete emotional shutdown.
Me too, because
that's
stuff has to be
emotion.
done.
But that's still an emotion, and you have to show that.
What am I trying to say? Like automatic pilot. I go into automatic pilot, and then the emotion comes later.
Yeah, that's how I am too.
Can I propose a possible fix?
Yes, please.
So at the end of the previous chapter, they discover the body. Shoom. Then you start this with the police were questioning Dallas about like something else, and then they're in this scene can happen, but just not while the body is like oh my gosh, a body. Oh, let's call the police. Maybe whatever. Right. So maybe then they're waiting for the police. If that's clear, I mean, I guess like.
But she has to show him pull something and put it in his pocket. You can't do that if the body's not there and if the cops are there already.
Good job, Tina, by the way, on your green pen.
Well,
I'm not saying anything more. Okay.
So can't they discover it though after? Like, is it important that they quickly conceal it and head out? I mean, like, so what I'm saying is like, I read this and I did not at all think the way Jen was thinking. And then she said it and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's right. So I am not sure if this would cost you readership or other people would be like, or kind of not, until you kind of said, well, this is her cousin.
I think that the decision has to be made by you and your mom of about her personality. You have to decide has to be an emotion. Like either there is an emotion, like the whole, like Jay was saying, the energy of death, or like Tina was saying, like go into overdrive and emotionless. But either way, you have to show that. You have to decide what your character, how they would react, and it has to be part of like who they are.
Yeah, and they're both acting the same way, right? They're both just kind of like it's life as usual,
that's true.
carrying on, and you know what I mean, Jen? Like when they each individually have their own maybe response. Or...
Yes, and maybe he can be like, because he seems like he's like, well, maybe she like he's trying to make excuses or whatever. He could be the whole time saying, well, I've always told her she shouldn't, blah blah. Like he could have an attitude about it, but there still has to be some sort of emotion that, like Jamie says, that they have to do it differently because they're different people, and you have to show their personality through that.
Especially if he murdered her.
So. Or if he's hiding something else.
So like if I saw a dead body on the floor, I don't think the first thing that I said would be, what do you think happened?
Right.
So, I mean, did we miss where they're like, oh my gosh, she's laying on the floor. Help, somebody call an ambulance. You know what I mean? Like, where is a panicky? Like, so the first thing, you come into a room, you're expecting to see a person, they're laying on the floor. And then you get closer and you see blood, right? So yeah, I
think we don't have the end of last chapter, so we don't really know for sure. Because I can buy into that all of that happened between the chapters. I don't need to see that.
Yeah,
the end of last chapter gave me enough to know that I'm just not seeing it. It happened, but I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, they had a big reaction, and now they're dealing with like, I can't believe, and maybe if every once in a while, wow, I can't believe it, and then back to looking around the library. I don't know, but yeah, I mean. I think it'll be fun. I think it's so fun that you're doing this with your mom. Like, I mean, I would be looking forward to these conversations. You know what I mean? Like, so I think you guys will have great fun kind of getting back to this and chewing on it some more.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions or are you?
No, that has been so instructive and constructive and helpful. Really, everything. Very helpful.
If you ever decide to write a talking dog book, I will read it.
Okay.
I would want an autographed copy.
As long as it's a spaghetti monster, I will read it too.
Okay.
Maybe they could partner up and they could go on adventures together.
Yeah. The dog can do the land work. The monster can do the lake work.
Hilarious.
Okay. Thank you very much, you guys. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Last but not least.
Bambina.
My turn.
What do you want from us, Tina?
So we discussed this blog post last time, and so I went back and rewrote it. And so I'm just looking for what you think of the hopefully improved version.
All right.
Isolate thyself.
All right. Well, I think that she did a really good job of following our directions and doing exactly what we say. So, in other words, but I do like the decision that she made here to focus on one element at a time. Not only is it going to give her more opportunities to get more articles out, it is more focused and has a better structure to it. So, I think that's a really good job. If I had a meet, it would be like, I wouldn't call these stories. Let's look at the same story from each of a different view. Those aren't stories. Either she needs to change them to be stories, or she needs to say, let's look at the same scene elements or something. Right. And to demonstrate different focus, let's look at the same scenery or whatever. But the point is, they're not stories. Other than that, I really like the focus. I really like that she does exactly what she says. She tells you what she's going to do. She does it. Then she says, here's what I did. And so I really don't have super meat. So I'll shut up and let other people talk.
I'll go ahead.
Are you sure? Because I will.
Go ahead.
Okay. I am so happy to have read this piece because I know that what she did last time, it was basically calling it in. And this one is more what she's capable of doing. And this is a very readable blog post. That is a blog post, right? And it's fantastic. When I was reading it, this is my only piece of meat, which really is not even going to be meat, is that when I'm reading something instructional, I'm not used to the I pronoun. And so that kind of threw me for just a minute. But then I remembered, well, this is a blog post, so it's not that important. But when I read instruction, I do prefer no I pronoun. But other than that, I think it's just 1,000 times better.
I agree. I think she did so much better. I like that it's more personal from the perspective of not just being like sounding like you farmed it out from some sort of ghostwriter or whatever. It feels more like a personal. So much better. Good job there. Kudos. There are a few issues that I found with it. I didn't really understand what she was saying. Like, she wanted to focus on view. She says, today, the difference I want to focus on is view. Short stories have different views than novels, even if they're telling part of the same story. But she doesn't tell us what she means by views. Like, she mean perspective? Like, I needed a sentence in there that says, the view of a story is, and then tell us exactly, because I think that people could use the word view and mean different things, like point of view, which might be what she's talking about. It could be the views, like as far as like what you're trying to get across, like the view of the world in general. Like I didn't understand that a whole lot. So that's one of the meats. There are a couple of grammatical things in the second paragraph. The length is one obvious difference, but there are some other distinct. So I don't know what you meant there, but that needs to be fixed. The second to last paragraph, as you can see, the different views, plural, between our novel and our short story ends. It should be views, and you wouldn't say the differing views ends up being, it should be end up. Different views end up giving us two. And then in conclusion, please don't use in conclusion. That sounds like a ninth grade high school essay. And I know she's way better writer than that. Like, so that was my biggest thing, was I just didn't like how she ended it. But again, like, this is so much better with a little bit of just a little polishing. Like, this is like a great piece, I think, that will help other writers out. So I love that about it. So, and I like that she's going to put another one of her own pieces in there for people to read, to give it in context, which I think is awesome. I think it's what we should be doing when we're doing blog posts. And so, yeah, I love that. So.
I wouldn't argue with putting a definition of view in there. I think that would be very helpful and clarifying. Also, this title so the difference between a novel and a short story, part 1, view, right? So that we know that this is a series. So, that would be something I would change. I don't have a problem with in conclusion. I would not be like, this person is a 9th grade essay writer. So that's just an opinion or just whatever.
Of course.
And then, I mean, I can't argue with the edits. There's obviously some sloppy editing here, but that can get fixed up, right?
Yeah, that's just details, right?
But yeah, I totally agree that you could define view, because are you like, is there a style guide or something that you're referring to, right? Because Jennifer's right. I mean, if you're talking about like a political view, or like it could be interpreted many ways. And I was even like, oh, well, maybe you could change it to focus, except you say the focus this week is view. So you don't really want to say the focus this week is focus. We're going to focusing on focus. That wouldn't work. But yeah. Anyone else care to chime in and add any more meat or bread?
I would much rather read this piece than the other. I would have like, if it weren't her and I was skimming through blog posts, I would never have finished the other one. This one was much more enjoyable to read, and I was much more interested in it because it was a real person using their real experiences, you know, so yeah.
All right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, way, way better. And again, she did just what she was told. No, I'm just kidding.
If we only all would do that.
All right. So we can let her out. Come on out, Bambina. What do you say?
Thank you so much for your feedback. I should have been taking notes. Because now my mind just went blank. I really did think about putting a definition of view in there, but then I thought that the descriptions would be explanatory enough. So obviously they weren't.
Well, they were enough for me, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have that feedback, but once Jennifer said it, I'm like, well, it would be an enhancement. Do you know what I mean? So like, I didn't have the trouble, but once it was pointed out to me, I'm like, yeah, I can see where that would be helpful to be a clarifier.
Right. And think about the average bounce rate for blog posts, I think is something like 10 seconds or less. So you want to like be very clear within the first 10 seconds what we're about to read. So like for some people, if it wasn't clear, they'd move on. You know, if it's not what they're looking for. So that's the other thing to think about too when writing blog posts.
Yeah, you don't want people to think that you're writing about the View TV show, because then people would be clicking right off. No, I'm sorry. I will keep my opinions to myself.
I wouldn't even read my own blog post.
So then what do you think about the feedback that these are not stories? These are descriptions, scenes, or whatever.
Yeah, you're right. They're scenes. And I was kind of interested in if anyone was going to talk about how many times I said the word story, because I was like, oh, that's too many times. But again, there's like all that SEO stuff and all that to worry about. So I thought, well, I'm just going to wait until I put it in to WordPress and see what the SEO feedback says. Because, there's certain things they want, like they want your keywords to be in your first paragraph and stuff like that. So, and that title, that was not like what I was going to use as a final title.
Yeah.
That was more like so I could save it to Word kind of title.
Yeah, because title is like a whole nother thing, isn't it?
Right. And I need to do the SEO on the title. And so I have to kind of wait until because we have that thing in there that gives us a score. So I kind of want to wait and see how that turns out before I give it a final title.
Good idea.
So there was some of that going on there too. Like I was thinking, like, they're going to make me change it.
Are you going to turn these into stories, or are you just going to call them something other than stories?
I'll probably just change it to scenes.
Or
maybe I won't call them anything at all. I'll just say it's like the difference between looking at the garden from up above and through the keyhole.
I don't know if I would do that, because then that starts to be murky and awkward sentences.
Right.
Like I really like this structure, but I will say that in the first paragraph when I read it, I'm like, what? Dead bird? And then you just kind of say, and then there's a flower, and then there's do you know what I mean? So like the first time I read it, like you might see a dead bird. What? And then like, oh, so then the next we get to hear the story of the dead bird. Well, that's better, because at first I was like, Wait a minute. Everything else in this description is sort of lovely. This is dead bird under the bird bath. All right. So what else?
As far as the in conclusion thing, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I'm gonna have to think about it because I don't know. Like, I guess that comes from my content writing. They want that. When you're doing content writing, they want you to say in conclusion and sum up what you just have told everybody.
Yeah.
So
Go to ninth grade English teachers. So I guess that's why I was sensitive to it. Is that because I read your other writing and it just was so. You're such a great writer, and then I read that and I was just like, you know. So
and it could be I'm just having a little bit of trouble separating the content writer from the creative writer.
Because this is a blog post is kind of somewhere in between, right?
Yeah. And I've done content writing where my voice was totally not there.
Right.
Like you just write
for
the content and you give the facts, just the facts, ma'am.
Which is kind of what you submitted last week. And that was kind of our critique was that
it was
completely
100%
void of you.
content writing last week.
Right. So for me, like, all right, so again, I'm just one voice and I'm the only one that brought that up. So maybe it won't even be an issue. I mean, like if you were to fix a couple things that I point out and not change that, I mean, you're still talking about a very good, piece. So you just make the decision as a writer, what you think and what,
I mean, if I did anything, I would just find a different way to say in conclusion.
That I think is my biggest point is like that's just the easy route. That'd be like in ninth grade or eighth grade English language arts, people are like, first the author says blah, 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 blah. The next paragraph starts off. Secondly, the author, blah, blah, blah. In conclusion, that's what I'm saying is like, it just felt like.
I have a 10th grader that I'm homeschooling and we write many of these papers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know.
Here's the thing too. I mean, you're kind of saying it's a blog post, but I will say, I mean, this is for writing shorts. And so it really is supposed to be some kind of a weird hybrid. It's supposed to be informational. So it's not really a blog. This is not Tina Katane's blog. It's not just like I went to the grocery store today and I bought asparagus. This is like information.
And mushrooms and fettuccine.
In a personal way, right? And so I feel like sometimes when it's like, but wait, this isn't a content article. This is a blog post, might fence someone in from making a choice that might work. And so, I mean, it's like up to you to kind of like figure that out because unfortunately what you're doing isn't really as clearly defined as like, this is for my blog or this is a content piece. And so it's just choices that you're gonna have to make. Like, what is your voice? And over time it might evolve. Right. You might find your own way. Yeah.
It's probably going to be an experiment in, a running experiment. And who knows, a year from now, they could be completely different kind of things than what they are now. So.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Do you feel like your back is well fed, Tina?
Yep.
Good.
I do.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess I was the big mouth at the beginning, so I'll be the big mouth too. And so I think we're done, right, ladies? Like we got nothing else to say to our viewers other than we appreciate you, and we hope that you will spread the word if you like what we're doing.
Like and subscribe.
Well, this is the Patreon, and so.
But isn't it also a YouTube video?
Yeah,
no one can see it unless they are a Patreon.
Yes.
So if they like and subscribe to this, is it redundant? Like, I don't even know. See, okay.
They still would be subscribing to our channel, though.
Oh, okay. But if they like and subscribe on this video that they're watching, it will subscribe them to our channel?
I believe so.
All right.
And then they can see all our other great content.
Yes, let me get my pointer. See, because Tina told us she does so much content. Down there, like and subscribe. All right. So you guys are amazing. I really, really enjoyed your hard work this week. I love those sprint pieces, and I really, really like what you submitted. So thanks for letting me be a part of your little circle.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, too.
All right. I guess that's it for now, right?
Yep.
Till next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.